We are live on Facebook. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our Zoom room audience and our Facebook Live audience. Welcome everyone to our final Safe at Home edition of the Manitoba Book Jam. My name's Anita Dare. I'm a Winnipeg author, actor, producer, and your host. I reside in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples. It's also the homeland of the Métis Nation. Tonight, we also welcome Danielle Somack. Wave, Danielle. She is an emerging teen writer taking part in Creative Manitoba's Rural Writing and Publishing Mentorship Program and will kindly provide assistance with hosting duties tonight. Speaking of kind, oh my goodness, our thanks to McNally Robinson Booksellers again, which they've generously provided a $25 gift certificate, which we will draw for at the end of tonight's program from our Zoom audience attendees. A reminder, you must be in attendance to win. Thanks also to the Manitoba government and its Safe at Home program. A Safe at Home grant means we're able to offer a small honorarium to each of our artists presenting tonight. We are here to celebrate Manitoba books and authors and a Manitoba musician. Tonight's featured authors are, feel free to wave when I say your name, Laurie Cayer, Maureen Flynn, Will George, Errol Ranville, James Scholes, and Andrew Unger. Errol Ranville, who will read from his upcoming memoir, is a featured author tonight, but he's also our musical guest. So that's an extra special treat. Today this will be a fast-paced 1 hour. So hold on to your hats and a favorite beverage. Let's begin. Born in Saskatchewan, Laurie Cayer has made Manitoba her home since the 3rd grade. She's the author of 5 volumes of poetry, the forthcoming Searching for Signal, Mrs. Romanov, Dopamine Blunder, Attenuations of Force, and Stealing Mercury, which won the 2004 Eileen McTavish Sykes Award for Best First Book in Manitoba. In 2005, Laurie won the John Hirsch Award for Most Promising Manitoba Writer. She's the co-founder of the Lansdowne Prize for Poetry, Prix Lansdowne de Poésie, which is part of the Manitoba Writing and Publishing Awards. By day, Laurie is a virtual editorial assistant for 2 scientific research journals. So tonight, Laurie will read from Searching for Signal. Please welcome Laurie Cayer.
Hello, it's me. I thought I'd show you all the cover of my book. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's it. So Searching for Signal is, it's like a family story. It's an elegy to my father who passed away a number of years ago. And he was this great friendly guy, great talker, until the year he became ill. And then all of a sudden he became uncharacteristically silent. And he didn't talk about his thoughts or feelings at all. And that left me feeling, I don't know, sort of incomplete, I guess you might say. And so I started just recording the living act of his death and the things about his life that he had told me over time. And that then led me to doing a whole bunch of research on his ancestors, which was extremely interesting. So it is a lot of different things, and it's all mixed up with my own memories as well. And really, I think if I had to say what the book was about, it's sort of about how poverty creates who we are, how a legacy of poverty going back generations will create who we are, and how each generation struggles to do better each time. So this is actually the first poem in the book. Now you are wondering why you were even here, describing the precisely tinctured color of air, sound of the world going on without you, without some sort of God. Now you are walking into it, hoping it will be like walking into the world's body finally. Now you see the whole fractal formula, despairing outward, molecule to atom. We go, the recurring string of us. Preamble, Thanksgiving circa, happy family hike past the collapsing canopy of autumn, along some farmer's cobby field, snowed with white beans dropped during harvest. You walk into the trees like a father. Step crisply out with your message. Sideways eyes say you're likely pissing blood again, despite that defiled organ carried away like an air balloon. Likely again. I think in muted tones of bending, clenching, gleaning for a meal what was shed here. Now you are locked down. The days keep falling, dropped morphine caps beneath your blue waiting chair. We are doled out. One will finish your website, one your taxes, one those tables you made us ready for varnish. Me, the letters to the misdiagnosing. Milk beads on the carpet. You were dirty 30s hunger, post-depression era hunger, world going on without your knowledge, wars, cities raising their tall buildings, third generation still living like pioneers when you all built your father's first real house, oldest boys ready to leave. You were a pulled bowstring, cans of evaporated milk, double punched, downed in a solid sluice. You were the first in generations, high school enlightened, first journeyman carpenter, book reader, existential lightning rod. You may have begun to wonder how longitude, your ancestors, meteor dropped further south, might have changed anything. I'm scanning the data bank of your enterprises. Besides carpenter, a lifetime of diminishing investments. Houses split up into rentals, restaurant owner, building inspector, sudden earthworm farm in the basement. And that quaint anecdote, passing by Lynn Lake on a hunting trip, repossessed house, bought on your card for $900, 12-hour drive one way to be landlord. The gambler's paradox had you blind to folly, hereditary, thistle-rooted to the suspect examples of the dead. What you know of wood, multifarious steps toward an entire building, set of kitchen cabinets, walnut and glass table for your mother. Not till your 60s did you lose 3 fingertips, miter cut, blood jumping crickets across the room. What you knew of the forest, your private solace, your other job, rabbit, deer, moose, upwards of every edible bird and fish, prevailing drive to provide. What you knew of the forest is what you knew of wood, its raw material, concentric maker of your days. That's just a few of them.
Unmute myself. Yay! Oh my goodness. Thank you, Lori. What a wonderful way to start off our evening. I lived in Lynn Lake once. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just it resonated deeply. Okay, thank you so much. On to our second author for the evening. Maureen Flynn is a mystery writer, columnist, and short story author. Pick Up Sticks is the 3rd installment of her Manitoba mystery series, with titles that follow the popular nursery rhyme, 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe. The first in the series was Buckle My Shoe, and the second, Shut the Door. The settings for her stories are right here in Winnipeg, past and present. The Burton Cummings Theatre is the location for Pick Up Sticks. It takes place in 1914 and present day. Writing is Maureen's passion, yet she always finds new avenues to channel her creativity, including painting local landscapes When not immersed in creative pursuits, she is host to family and friends who know a cup of coffee and stories of her latest adventures are always on hand. Maureen will read from Pick Up Sticks. Welcome, Maureen Flynn.
Hi, thank you, Anita. And just want to also thank you for hosting these Manitoba book jams. I've been to a few and they're very enjoyable to hear everybody's reading. Having a little problem with my camera here. If it clunks down in the middle of this, I'll be destroyed. Anyway, here's the book, Pick Up Sticks. Like Anita says, it takes place in two eras that are intertwined, and it takes place at the Burt in Winnipeg. Sure, we all heard of the Burt and Cummings Theater. So first of all, I'm going to read from 1914. The water was cold, the current swift. Mabel's arms flailed about in the icy water. What looked like a piece of deck chair floated by, and she lunged for it. She hung onto it in desperation to stay afloat. Her screams for help went unheard, drowned out by 1,000 men, women, and even children, all in an equal frenzy to be heard, to be saved. A dense fog hovered, and an odd smell hung in the air. It was like oil or seaweed or simply the smell of doom. Mabel frantically searched everywhere for Lawrence or anyone who might help her. She knew her chances were slim. Surrounded by a sea of the others, she could only make out those close. Seeing them did nothing to alleviate her terror. The horror on their faces only mirrored her own, as they too struggled to stay above water. So many of them together, she thought, yet each really alone. Mabel watched in shock as some lost the battle. She heard their screams go silent and saw their arms go still. Their eyes, once wide open, fell shut. It was the last thing Mabel saw of them before they sank into the depths of the St. Lawrence River. Whew, that was very hard to read and write. It's kind of upsetting part of the book. And then now I'm going to read a lighter part from present day. Steve knew he'd best make amends with Penny. After work, he decided to head to the Burt and surprise her at rehearsal. As he watched, Steve realized this was no cheap production. It was hugely impressive. He stood in the shadows of the theater where Penny couldn't see him, in case it made her nervous. And Penny, wow, Steve was shocked how well she was doing. It looked like his Penny, but that was it. It was as if she had changed into someone else. He supposed that's what acting was all about. And maybe he had been wrong. She may have some talent after all. He looked around for Dax Collins, but couldn't see him anywhere. It seemed a student was filling in for his role. When the ship began tipping, Penny looked terrified as she gripped a railing. It was very convincing. As the fog blew across the stage, Steve squinted to see better. Someone was beside Penny on the ship, a woman in a black dress. Steve watched as several passengers on the ship slid into the water. Obviously, the water was heavily cushioned. They floated and flailed in theatrical unity. The woman beside Penny rose from the ship's deck and disappeared into a thick fog when Penny leaped into the water. Penny cried out for Lawrence as she fell. Sorry. Hang on. As she fell, Steve couldn't help himself. He no longer cared if she knew he was there. He stood proud and clapped for her performance. Just a little bit more. Steve, she screamed. It was Penny. Why was she calling his name? Did she mess up her lines? The stage lights came on. Everything was still hazy from the fog machine. Steve wasn't sure if he should interrupt, but when he heard her call his name again, He didn't hesitate. He ran down the center aisle and hurtled himself onto the stage in one quick leap. Penny lay there, not moving. Someone yelled to call 911. A young kid carrying a clipboard was wailing. Why did she jump so soon? I warned her not till she reached the X. Steve knelt beside her. Penny, Penny, are you okay? There was no reply. She was out. A young girl was yelling hysterically. It was the ghost. It was Mabel. She pushed her. A man in a cap came rushing over. He looked shaken. Is she okay? Who are you? I'm her husband. Clear the stage and make sure the medics are on the way.
Hey, wonderful. You managed that falling mic pretty good too. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move to our next author now. Good, I was just checking. I'm not muted. Somebody would have let me know if I was. Okay, well, born on Manitoba's Saugeen First Nation in 1965, an excellent year, I must say, and raised in Winnipeg, Will George has been a professional writer for most of his adult life. He studied radio broadcasting at Robertson College and graduated in 1996. From there, he went on from contract to contract as a writer and a journalist. In 1998, he worked at Maclean's magazine in Toronto as a researcher and reporter. He also wrote, sold, and produced a television pilot for APTN, that's the Aboriginal People's Television Network, Canada's fourth national network, and the only network focused on Canada's Indigenous population. The novel he will read from tonight, Those Who Walk the Road, is his first, though I understand he's got two more ready to go. Welcome, Will George.
Thank you so much for being here. This is great. This is my novel, Those Who Walk the Road, and I'll just start reading. The car pulled into the nearly empty parking lot of a large, dark building. Are we seriously going to an underground fight? What? No, though that would be cool. So where are we going? Alex glanced up at the building. What is this place? We're going to a powwow. What's a powwow? I thought you said we're going for ice cream. Portlandia Mall is right there. You love the powwow, though, Derek said. Mr. Justin, I just want ice cream. I will take you for ice cream if you'll go with me to the powwow. Alex pulled his jacket into him. It's September, Derek said, and it's cold out. Who eats ice cream when it's cold? Alex returned to the car. Derek followed. I just thought you might want to do something to get your mind off things, he said to Alex. Alex shoved his hands in his coat pocket. What about you, Mr. Justin? Why are you doing this? Your wife and kid died last week. Why aren't you crying? Why are you acting like they ain't dead? Derek watched as another car arrived in the parking lot. A moment later, he turned his head away from Alex. It was clear he was crying. Never got a chance to teach Reese about his culture. Never got a chance to take him to a powwow. He never got to know about his Cherokee heritage. I'm Alex, not Reese. I know. And I'm not Cherokee Indian, as cool as that would be. I'm just some dumb Irish kid. So, why'd you take me here? Let's go get your ice cream, Derek said as he walked toward the mall. Alex and Derek stood in the entrance of the mall and watched as throngs of people moved in and out of the various stores. The higher two floors likewise crowded. Derek considered the escalators. I actually hate this place. Let's go then. Nope. Told you I would get you ice cream, and that's exactly what we're going to do. They headed into the noise of the food court. A moment later, Derek found an ice cream shop. Alex finished his ice cream. Was he a good kid? Yes. What if he completed his job here on Earth and it was his time to die? He was 4. He never learned how to tie his shoes, learn his alphabet, ride a bike, or get a driver's license. What if he's here just laying groundwork for a big assignment for you? No, go for that metaphysical nonsense. It's hogwash. What big assignment is there than being a dad? Alex didn't answer. He knew Derek was right. Let's go to that powwow, Alex said. No, we don't have to. Mr. Justin, I want to. Light taller, and he's gone, and I'm here. You're not my son. And you're not my dad. Who cares? But this is where we are. I live with you, and you are not responsible for me. Me, not Reese, me. I didn't choose this, and you didn't choose what happened to you. But we are right here, right now. So stop focusing on the past. Derek rose to his feet. You want to go to the powwow? Let's go. Alex and Derek came into the hall. The drumming was loud but in time. The singing that accompanied the drumming was powerful and hypnotic. Each note soared well into the night. Alex watched the proceedings in complete awe, struck by each sight and sound. The multicolored outfits the magnificent dancers wore were incredible. Men with war paint splattered across their faces. Some with giant feathered headdresses stood noble and proud. Crowds of people sat in the stands. People walked in and out of the entrance, the elderly, the young. People carrying babies in their arms or pushing babies in strollers. This is wild, Alex blurted, transfixed by the dancing. Soon, though, he nudged Derek. I'm sorry. For what? Not wanting to go earlier? It's okay. And for Reese missing out on us. Me too, Derek said. I'm gonna stop there.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh, powwows. I guess here's hoping, knock on wood, that we'll see a return, to all of our summer events, and powwows and the festivals and all of that. That's just, I was thinking of that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Will. I just wanted to mention before we get to our next guest, our halftime show, some of our books are out now, published during the pandemic, or certainly affected by the pandemic. And some are about to be published. So Lori, when is your book coming out? You're muted.
I understand that it's April, but I don't know an exact date at this time.
I think I heard April 1st for both you and James and Errol. Well, we'll talk to you in a moment. You could let us know when your book is coming out, because this brings us to our next guest. Well, with his band Seaweed, Errol Ranville has written over 150 songs, recorded 20 albums, and is now working on the band's 21st album, Spirit Rising. If COVID allows, the Seaweed Band will open a concert for Toby Keith at the Bell MTS Place on July 24th of this year. Errol's memoir, Run as One, My Story, will soon be released. He's also co-writing a screenplay based on his memoir. 2021 will be a busy year for Errol, with a new album, a screenplay for a new movie, a book tour, and fingers crossed, a live music concert tour to support the new album. We're lucky to have him doing double duty this evening. In a few minutes, he'll read from his upcoming memoir. But first, he'll play us a couple of songs. Welcome to the Manitoba Book Jam, Errol Ranville.
Good evening, Anita, and thank you again for hosting these book jams for all of us guys. And I've never done one before. I've never written a book before. So I'm really happy to be trying new things and being in new places, different places with different people. And yeah, it's good to be here. Just to lead into this next song, it's our newest song on the radio these days. It's on Aboriginal radio right now. I think it's number 10 this week on the top 40 across the country. And it'll be on the new album that isn't even finished yet. But yeah, it's going up to mainstream radio, so CBC and all the rest of the radio stations across the country will be picking it up next week. It's a song that I wrote, and it's called, what is it called? Love of the Game, of course. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Na 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 na. Hey, 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 love, it's a burning fire, going higher, ain't no hiding it. And love, it's a bold desire, burning higher, no denying it. And love, got me holding down longer than I can hold on. This love for the endless highway, 1,000 miles from our home, keep rolling on forever. Nothing left but skull, skin and bones, and the slugs got me holding out longer and I can't hold on. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. This highway goes on forever with no end in sight. I know it's got the better, the best days of my life. I know it's not the losing or the winning, the love of the game. Headstrong rebel cowboys still running against the grain. But now we're playing for our lives and fighting the good fight. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. There's all the applause right there. I can see it. I love it. Okay, so this next song is one I wrote as well. This one you can buy online or yeah, it's off the last record, the record before this new one coming out. A couple of years now. It's the album was called Last Ride. The song is called I'm Hiding. It's the thing I wrote again. Should have held something back to survival. Should have told you I was scared of heights. Got so high on this thing, then we started it. Now you leave me, turned out the light. Trying to understand all this new thing. Trying to keep my head on straight. But everybody's going their own way. No forever, not today. Oh baby, what's going on? Hey baby, with stars in your eyes, can't you see I'm beginning to slide? Knowing I'm there, and I'm hiding. Yeah, I'm hiding. Oh, back through the night, and I'm waiting for the morning light. Knowing I'm there, and I'm hiding. Thought we had something strong to rely on. Should have told you I was scared of heights. Got so high on this thing that we started. Now you leave, turned out the light. Oh baby, what's going on? Hey baby, with stars in your eyes, can't you see I'm beginning to slide? Knowing I'm there, and I'm hiding. Yeah, I'm hiding. Oh, not through the night. I'm waiting for the morning light. Going under. I'm hiding. Going under. I'm hiding. I'm going under. I'm hiding.
Woo! Yay! Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I was enjoying my chair dancing. We really should have organized a dance party, but I noticed a few other people. I see you, James, yeah, bopping along with me. Brenda, I saw you bopping too. Oh, that was terrific. Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to the second half hour of our program. A reminder that today's program is free, but our writers would certainly appreciate you picking up their books, either from the library, you can request it if it's not in inventory, or a bookstore, perhaps with the McNally Robinson gift certificate we will draw for at the end of tonight's jam. And you can pre-order as well, and you can get a hold of Errol's music. I think we'll give his website link, but you can certainly find it at McNally's, I'm pretty sure. Other places, all the usual places we purchase music. So I also want to mention that if there is time at the end of the evening, we will just open up our mics and everything else and do a bit of a Q&A. That's never guaranteed because we like to stick to the hour. However, after we close the Facebook Live, if you want to stick around and chat, you're certainly welcome to do that. And we love it. We love it. Okay, so it's now my pleasure. Are you ready to hand over introductions to my co-host this evening, the lovely Danielle Somack. Take it away, Danielle.
Hello. Yeah, I feel like you really hyped me up there. Let's introduce the authors now, shall we? So we hope Errol Ranville has had some time to catch his breath, because it is now my honor to introduce him as author. His memoir, Run as One, My Story, will be published by Great Plains Publications and is available for pre-order. This is what MB NDP leader Wab Kinew had to say about it. This is the story of how seaweed became a legendary name in Indigenous music. Run as One traces the perseverance, heartbreak, and inspiration that led Errol Ranville from extreme hardship to singing the soundtrack of so many of our lives. Welcome, Errol Ranville.
All right, thank you, Danielle. Such a nice intro. Took my breath away. I gotta sit here and recover here now for a second. Like I said, I've never done this before. It's a bit strange to be reading, but it's nice. It's a thrill as well. Run as One, My Story. It's about a year, I guess, in the making, and hours and hours and hours of interviews, and a lot of help from John Anderson for organizing all the information, and then it was easy for me to come in and put a little bit of drama and stuff into all the organized information. So I haven't planned anything. I'm just going to read. I cracked the book and I'm going to read right from there, and hopefully we'll find something. It's something enjoyable for us this evening already. So this is from page 38, right in the middle of the book. We never regard, I'm talking about the seaweed band. Now, it's hard to separate Errol Ranville and the seaweed band, where I'm always lived like two different entities. I've never really been a personal self. I think there's two of me, really. So we never regarded ourselves as the greatest musicians. However, together we were tight and sounded good. We were headstrong, passionate, dedicated, and motivated. But when veteran Indigenous guitarist Jimmy Flint joined us, that really elevated our stature. Originally from the Ebb and Flow Reserve, Jimmy was our cousin and one of the finest musicians on the Winnipeg Indigenous music scene. He was a guitar virtuoso who played circles around just about everyone on the local scene at the time. Jimmy was older and already well known and established when he joined us. When he was added to the mix, that was a big deal for us. We were in awe of him. We couldn't believe that a guy of Jimmy Flett's caliber would join us, 3 kids from the bush. He lifted us all up collectively and individually. Jimmy validated us and gave us confidence as a band. With Jimmy, we thought we were the best band in the world. Even though he didn't go the distance with us, we would not have gotten to where we were without Jimmy Flett. The most successful musicians and bands are the ones who realize early on that the key to success lies in writing your own songs. You need your own songs, your own voice, your own statement. I recognized that fact when I was 12 years old. That's when I started writing. I was a shy kid, so when I began to write songs, I couldn't share them with anyone, not even my brothers. I was too self-conscious. Finally, when I was about 14, thereabouts, I showed Wally, my older brother, one of my songs. He listened quietly and intently, paused for what to me seemed like forever, then finally said, "You got any more?" That was my validation. He made me sing them all into my sister Delphine's little cassette tape player. She was a school teacher. Everything I had written to that point, then I lost the tape. Brian, my older brother, was a big fan of Canadian-born folk singer-songwriter Buffy St. Marie, and he brought one of her records home when we were still in Eddystone. I wasn't into her music. We were rock and rollers, and she was a bit old for our tastes. Nonetheless, I listened to her song, "Take My Hand," for a while. I played it over and over again, taking in the lyrics and the story she was telling. That song touched me in a way no other song had done. It was a haunting love song that made me cry. I remember thinking that I didn't have any choice in the matter, that the song just took me somewhere else emotionally. That's the point when I realized I wanted to do that, to be able to touch people with my music. I wanted to write a song that could affect people in that same way. I wasn't much of a book reader as a kid. I'm a voracious novel reader now. So where did my songs come from? I've been asked this question throughout my career. I remember seeing an interview on TV with country music singer-songwriter Merle Haggard. I remember seeing after he won a country music award for his songwriting. He was asked what it was that helped him write so many great songs. His reply stunned me. "I believe all songs are already written, and a chosen few of us get to hear them and write them down," he stated. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when I heard him say that. I thought that I was the only one who experienced that. I understood implicitly what Merle was saying, but I would never tell anybody that because I feared they would think I was losing it. I hear a song, it comes to me, and I've got to get it written down before I lose it. I've lost more songs than I've ever recorded simply by not catching them when they were passing by in my head. They only come by once. Now I keep my phone by my bed so that when the muse hits, I can record it before it's lost forever. I just sing what I hear into my phone. And if there is a guitar riff, I hum that too. While opportunities remained limited for Indigenous musicians in Winnipeg, that was not the case outside the city limits. Reserves and rural communities with Indigenous populations were starving for live music from their own people. There was an entire untapped market just waiting for Indigenous performers. Chief Walter Monias of the Cross Lake Reserve, top of Lake Winnipeg, came to the Brunswick Hotel one night and witnessed a continuous lineup at the door and sometimes right down the street. People wanting to see an all Indigenous band playing for Indigenous audiences. The Ranville Trio was performing, my older brothers. Chief Monias apprehensively approached Sterling and inquired if we could consider coming up to his community to perform. Sterling was bold enough to accept. The band drove to Woboden in our old beat-up vehicles. There was no highway yet. The number 6 was a dirt trail filled with ruts. We chartered an airplane from Woboden to get us to Cross Lake. We were welcomed warmly and they paid enough to make the trip worthwhile. That got the ball rolling. The Ranville trio began traveling to isolated reserves to entertain the people who were not able to travel out to Winnipeg to see us play live in the hotels. Nobody else was doing it. We invented a new circuit for Indigenous bands to play outside of Winnipeg. This is where my brother Brian stepped in. He was like our very own Brian Epstein, manager of the Beatles. If it wasn't for Brian, there would be no Seaweed Band. Brian had always supported us in whatever way he could after he left Eddystone. He bought us equipment and provided us with a lot of encouragement. He took a job with the federal government at the Secretary of State Department in Toronto before settling in Ottawa. Situated in the center of the government services, Brian became our spin doctor. He knew how to work the media. And more importantly, he had connections with the inside track with all the reserves across the country. He knew the chiefs, and more significantly, when federal money was going out to all the reserves. He used this information to promote the Seaweed Band to reserves. We had been playing the Brunswick Hotel for several years now, and were looking for better opportunities. Brian became the catalyst for the next step in our career. We left the Main Street strip and headed out on the wide open road. When we vacated our spot at the Brunswick, Billy Joe Green and his band moved in and held residence there for several years. And I could go on. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was very moving, Ranville. Okay, so next we have James Scholes. He holds degrees from Arizona State, North Dakota, and Southern Illinois universities, and he has lived, traveled, and worked in over 90 countries. The title poem of his debut collection, The Trailer, won the 2013 CBC Poetry Prize, and his short stories are featured in Coming Attractions 13. His writing has appeared in Arc, Carousel, CV2, Descent, Prairie Fire, and the Malahat Review, among other journals, and has been nominated for the Journey Prize, the Pushcart Prize, both the Western and National Magazine Awards. He lives in Winnipeg, where he teaches creative writing and literature at the University of Winnipeg and also helps run a small 120-year-old farm. Tonight, James will read from his soon-to-be-published collection, The Trailer. Welcome, James Scholes.
Hi, everyone hear me okay? All right. Aaron, thank you so much. You know, and Anita as well. Like, as you mentioned the other night when we talked about in our rehearsal, like there's very few venues. And I was talking with my brother, John Scoles, who runs Times Change Time Lonesome Club, and they haven't been open for basically a year. And these kinds of places really help, you know, these venues help people. And you talked about going to Woboden, and I'm from the Paw. I was born in the Paw and also and raised in Thompson. And my brother Ernie knows you, Errol. He lives in Saskatoon. And you know, the connections that we have in the musical community and the writing community are really important. And so venues like this, thank you, Anita, and thank you, Danielle, as well. Much appreciated. So the trailer is a collection about I always tell my students, you know, never think that when you read a poem that's the person who wrote it. That's a speaker, right? It's a fictional person in that poem. And so what I'm going to read to you tonight are some sonnets that are basically from a Forsaken lover's perspective. This is the cover of the trailer. And the poem won the CBC Poetry Prize in 2013. And for many years, I tried to include the poem in a collection. And also, when it won, I thought, oh, damn, it was all quatrains. I've never organized my poems like this. So I'm just gonna organize every poem in quatrains, because that'll get me this collection. And I'll just do all these different changes because you know, and so it's very, you know, obsessive compulsive, basically. But there's this poem in the collection that has to do with mustard. And so that's why that is on it. So what I'm going to read you are a few sonnets tonight. And the first time I heard the word sonnet, I thought, oh God, I'm going to get sick. But Shakespeare wrote a lot of sonnets. Petrarch wrote a lot of sonnets. It's a form that I never really recognized, but I always ask my students, emulate some of the greats. If you're stuck for how to find a form to write your poems, write, you know, a villanelle, or try to write a ballad or something. Copy one of the greats. And I hadn't really done that myself. So I wrote a lot of sonnets, but I called them comic sonnets. So I try to make them funny, but whenever you say something's supposed to be funny, you never know if it's actually going to be taken that way. So here's some sonnets for you, and then I'll follow up with just a couple of little short ballad poems. But this one appeared in the Malahat Review. She got my heart. She got my heart, and I got the sofa, her dresser, the kitchen table. Two poorly put together pieces of furniture. Scrabble. All the books, mean looks, a, a, a freezer burnt old bottom feeder I meant to cook, bake into our not so sodden moments and memories. I joked, a whole little soul to help my broken soul heal. One eye big, wet and cold. The fish's, not hers, still follows me. It always will. She danced me sideways. She danced me sideways, then waltzed out of my place with this achy breaky heart half hanging out of an old fiddle case, humming a Chopin farewell for a laugh. So went our rumba. Our kitchen party dance machine fell from solid gold to dark and cold. Then our tango morphed into a rotten old mango the same day we found dry rot in our foxtrot. She couldn't quick step fast enough away. Our cha-cha went wah-wah, as would my Macarena, making her mad with slide, hip-hop, and jazz. Things just didn't jive. She liked my imitations. She liked my imitations of certain television stars, but hated some others. My Edith Bunker bombed, and Archie made me look like a meathead, but my George Jefferson jumped her battery, and even Mr. Cunningham had his hardware polished. She called my JJ Dynamite, but my Fonzie flopped faster than Gabe Cotter. My elf sucked, but my Columbo was out of sight. Same for Radar. And cool that my Kojak caught her off guard, but not as into my Ted Knight as I'd like, but a Jack Tripper snicker made the effort worth it. I aim for the stars in heaven, even if my Mork from Mork brought us right back to earth. My acting teacher once told me my method was simply not acting very well. I don't own the role. She'd agree. Here's one you can play along with. I try to get as many references as you've seen in these poems to the different themes in the poem. This one's called "She Was Like a Canadian," and it has to do with Canadian rock bands, Canadian music legends, Canadian classic album titles, songs, etc. So see if you can count as many as two dozen different references to the Canadian legendary rock bands. She was like a Canadian. She was like a Canadian music legend, not exactly Murray or McNeil, and certainly not as sweet, more Morissette-like. A Jordan Twain traveling the miles, real sassy too, a platinum blonde in black velvet. We met at the Parachute Club. It was prismatic. She made me rise up, right up, up, up. She was a trooper, singing McLaughlin, a little like Luba, playing guitar in a mahogany rush. I told her, I'm your lover boy. You've got my streetheart. Our Harlequin romance needs the honeymoon suite. She shook her head, said I had turned into a real, true Cochrane. Heartless, jagged little pill, huh? All because of my great big sea-like mouth, our patio lanterns dimmed, and love, like a snowbird, went south. And two final short ones, a ballad and a very, very short 9-line poem. This one is not a sonnet, but it does take after Theodore Roethke's poem, My Papa's Waltz, but it's a little bit different take. My Baby's Waltz. The heat from her body used to make me dizzy. I hung on for dear life. Such loving wasn't easy. We romped frames crooked and got the trailer rockin', at least until our spooked neighbors got to knockin'. The body soldered to mine was made for long sessions. We came together like sunshine and sea in love-making lessons. Grinder, groaner, and wailer, a world-class lover indeed, who waltzed out of my trailer and left me clinging to memories. And this next poem is in my final, in my next collection that's coming out next year. It's called Traveling Thing. It just sort of captures the idea of travel and how that energy sort of moves through us. And thank you very much for listening. And Andrew, I'm going to be done in 8 seconds. Traveling Thing. The lusty old traveling thing hasn't yet ruined to dust, hasn't yet taken its tail to another table. That old feeling still ruckles and shakes like an old train, tightening up its schedule. Steel wheels making hot love with trim tracks, one steam-driven dream driving the beast. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I loved all that poetry. It was very great. But we're going to move on to Andrew Unger. So he is best known as the author and founder of the satirical news website, The Daily Bonnet. An educator based in southern Manitoba, his work has appeared in G's, Rhubarb, Ballast, CBC.ca, the Winnipeg Free Press, and elsewhere. If you go back far enough, he's probably related to. Once Removed is his first novel. Tonight, Andrew will read from Once Removed. Welcome, Andrew Unger.
Hi, thanks Anita and Danielle for hosting, and all the other writers for sharing your work. I'm going to read a section. I'm going to take you into the world. I'm going to take you to southern Manitoba, a Mennonite town. I'm going to take you into a Mennonite foot washing service. Now, you may not have ever heard of what that is. You'll soon see, I guess, what it is. The book, Once Removed, it's a novel about basically sort of a conflict between modernization and tradition in a small, it's a comedic conflict of between modernization and tradition in a small town, southern Manitoba. So this is a Mennonite foot washing service. It's a real thing. I mean, it's fiction, but you know, whatever. These do exist. On foot washing Sunday, there was a note in my church mailbox. Usually it's filled with parenting leaflets about the appropriate age to teach your children about tithing, or lists of more wholesome alternatives to secular rock bands. It was in the church mailbox, for example, where I learned that the musical stylings of Henry Heidebrecht and his Hayloft Boys are every bit as good as Nirvana, and without the long hair and drums. I have to admit, Mr. Heidebrecht played a pretty mean auto harp. Now, however, there was something else in my mailbox. It said, "We need to talk, Mrs. Friesen." I waited until Katie had finished pumicing Mrs. Epps' bunions and then showed her the note. Actually, I stood nearby and she gave me a look like I should back off a little bit, like now is not the time to be passing her notes, not with her fingers threaded between Mrs. Epps' arthritic toes. The men aren't nearly so thorough, I observed. Well, the men get to heaven in other ways, she said. For us, it's childbearing or foot washing, and I'm not about to have a child anytime soon. All the other denominations just share a cup of red wine and a handful of crackers every now and then, but Mennonites insist that scrubbing each other's feet in a plastic bowl filled with tepid water and sock lint is the only way to paradise. It's our most precious sacrament. The church entrance was full of puddles from all the melting snow brought in by people's shoes, which they stamped off unceremoniously on rubber mats near the door. There were splashes and stains on the pant legs of the whole congregation, and I figured the foot washing was, at this point, redundant. When Katie was finished with Mrs. Epp, we stood in the lobby, surrounded by dozens of long black coats and dirty rubber shoe covers, and read the note together. It was a pretty bold move to put a note in a mailbox like that, especially since everything that goes in there is supposed to be approved by the church evangelism committee and is meant exclusively for the edification of the brethren. So which Mrs. Friesen is this, Katie asked. Our Mrs. Friesen? It was never a good idea to assume the identity of a Friesen. Our Mrs. Friesen, of course, was Mrs. Friesen from the Preservation Society, but there are plenty of other options. I've come into contact with dozens of Mrs. Friesens in Edenfeld, and at least 9 of them were in the lobby at that very moment. I glanced around. Mrs. Leonard L. Friesen, she was conversing with the pastor's wife about the Sunday school curriculum, so that didn't seem too likely. Mrs. H.F. Friesen, she was busy pinching the cheeks of all the children as they filed out of children's church. I tried to make eye contact, but she just kept on pinching. Then there was Mrs. Harry Friesen, a woman whose own first name was a mystery to absolutely everyone, including her own husband, who also referred to her as Mrs. Harry Friesen. She still had her socks off and her feet were wet. I figured it was unlikely then that she would have ventured all the way to the mailboxes in that state of undress. And if she had, it was equally unlikely that she would have been able to complete such a task without leaving a trail of footprints on the carpet. I ruled her out too. You can stick around and talk to all the Mrs. Friesens you want, but I've got to go, Katie said. I've got to write 5 more pages on Judith Butler for tomorrow. Just as we were about to leave, I noticed our Mrs. Friesen over by the coat rack, struggling to put on her parka among the piles of men's rubber overshoes. She smiled when I looked in her direction. You wanted to talk, I guess? Oh, yes. You seem busy with Mr. Clausen's corns, so I left a note, she said. I didn't want to interrupt. I told her she was free to interrupt Mr. Clausen's corns. She said that she would keep that in mind, and then said she had something very important to tell me about the Edenfeld book, she said. I looked around. This wasn't the place for such conversations. I happened to know that some of the men putting on their overshoes nearby had very high-powered hearing aids. Not here, at Frugal Frank's, I said, in the sausage aisle. Randall, my friend Randall, once told me that the best place for clandestine conversations was the sausage aisle at Frugal Frank's. The store is owned by a Lutheran family now, and unlike Ernie's across the street, it was a property that BLT, the mayor, had yet to wiretap. Randall claimed there was something about a good German sausage that scrambled the airwaves for even the most modern surveillance technology. I think it's the natural casings, he said. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Oh my goodness. That was fantastic. And what a wonderful way to close our evening. We have a few more minutes. I just want to say thank you, Danielle. You have been amazing during this series. I've really appreciated your co-hosting, your grace, and your enthusiasm. Thank you to all of our presenters. Each one of you, every time you read, it's just like, oh, I want to talk to you about this. There's been something. So hopefully we'll have a chance to chat a little bit more. I've appreciated all the comments that have come through on chat. So just to let you know, everybody who's put a comment on chat, I'm going to forward those chat conversations and comments to all of our presenters tonight. They are so appreciated. Same thing on Facebook Live. We appreciate you. Terry, I saw you there. I went over there and peeked. I can't respond to any comments because the sound comes up and it just messes everything else. But I appreciate your comments and we'll all enjoy reading them later. Oh, this has been an extra special evening because it is our final Manitoba Book Jam in this series of 4. There might be more. I don't know. So our thanks to the Manitoba government for providing its Safe at Home grant, which it has allowed us to pay a small honorarium to each presenter. Authors and musicians, like all artists, are part of what is known as the gig economy, which has been hit so hard by the pandemic. In the book industry, launches have been canceled along with easy access to new books in bookstores and libraries, especially during shutdowns. If you appreciated what our authors shared with you this evening, hop over to a bookstore in person if you can, or order over the phone or online. If you're in Winnipeg, please consider supporting McNally Robinson Booksellers, which has always been the greatest support to our Manitoba authors. So just an extra special applause to McNally's, because we just, each one of us who's written a book here in Manitoba, we've felt their care and their enthusiasm and their support, and they've just been amazing. So thank you to McNally's for providing the $25 gift certificate for our draw, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, we have a very special announcement from one of our guests this evening, one of our audience members who's also well known in our writing community, Ariel Gordon. Please unmute yourself, Ariel Gordon, and let us know what you have for us.
Yes, I am popping in. I loved all of those readings and several of them were new to me, so that was really great. I am wanting to tell people about the Rites of Spring, which is a National Poetry Month initiative where poems by Manitoba authors go in the Winnipeg Free Press. Last year, we partnered up with the Winnipeg International Writers Festival, and we're doing that again, and hopefully going forward, that will happen. So we actually could pay people this year, which is lovely. So the deadline is March 26th. I'm going to put the little call for submissions in the chat, but it's also on the Winnipeg International Writers Festival website. So we're looking for short poems to publish in the paper for National Poetry Month. So I would love it if some of you would submit, some/all. And we're really looking for writers we haven't had before. We're really looking for, you know, just communities that we have not published very much. So yeah, please submit. I know it sounds weird. Submit, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Ariel. That's fantastic. That is really great news. Things are looking up all over for all of us. And oh my goodness, what is it? About 9 more weeks to the May long weekend. I know I do a countdown on my Facebook page, but everything is looking up. And I'm just feeling so positive about where we're going. So I hope you are all well. In a moment, we'll say goodbye to our Facebook Live audience. But before we do, let's all just unmute right now and hoot and holler our gratitude, not only for our Facebook Live audience, but also for all of our presenters tonight and all of our audience members. So woohoo! Let's change our bandwidth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you guys rock. You are amazing. And this has been so much fun. Our Zoom room is limited to keep our bandwidth healthy, but we appreciate you all being here. Before we leave, we are now just going to go to our draw. I'm sure you've been waiting for that anxiously. Okay, okay, share screen. I've got to share screen. Okay, now, okay. So you can share screen and you can see my mess here, but I also somewhere have random name picker. Okay, are you ready? So you have to be here because we want to hear you cheer and go yay when you win. So here I'm going to push this button because everybody's names are entered in here, even at the last minute. You few that came in at the last minute. Look at that. All right, so here we go. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Oh, I got to scroll down. The winner is Ariel Gordon.
That seems unfair, but also awesome for me.
It's absolutely fair. It is absolutely fair. I've given it a few spins of the wheel, and that's just how it goes. So I'm very happy to for you. Okay, thank you, Facebook Live audience. I'm gonna shut you down now. Everybody else, if you want to stick around, you're welcome to. It is time to say goodbye. So read a book, stay safe, and keep smiling. Bye, you guys. Bye, Facebook.